asking if we parked in parking stalls? We did not. We probably took up a few parking stalls.
Okay. And what about distance? How close were you to Ms. Barron's vehicles? How close was the front of your squad to the passenger side of her vehicle?
I'll estimate probably around 30 feet. That's just an estimation, though.
Okay. And you didn't turn on your lights, did you?
No, we did not.
All right. So at that point, you and Officer Athman walk out, and both of you approach Ms. Barron's, right?
Correct.
All right. At one point, Officer Shevbauer arrived, correct?
Shevbauer did arrive later after the K9 sniff, correct?
So you're saying that he didn't get there until after the canine sniff happened already?
I can't testify when he got there. I didn't see until after the K9 sniff.
Okay, all right. Ultimately, we have 3 squads there, correct?
Ultimately, yes.
And 4 police officers.
Correct.
Did more officers come at some point, or was that just the 4 of you total?
I believe another officer arrived, Officer Dietrich, but I'm not 100%, don't recall.
Okay. So you and Officer Athman approached Ms. Barron's, and she rolled down her window to talk to you?
Correct.
And I suspect that because you were field training Officer Athman, you allowed him to handle the investigation, correct?
Correct.
So you were acting kind of as a cover officer. He was doing the questioning, right?
Correct.
I want to talk to you quickly about the 911 call. Did you hear that call? Did you hear the conversation between the dispatcher and the reporting party from your squad?
I did not.
So what you heard is what the dispatcher dispatched over to you, correct?
Correct.
Were you told by the dispatcher whether or not the caller provided their name to the dispatcher?
I don't recall if they said they did or not.
Did dispatcher tell you whether the caller left their phone number or their address for the dispatcher?
I don't recall if they told me that or not.
You were given a description of the vehicle that the caller called it, right?
Correct.
And also a license plate?
Correct.
And prior to engaging discussion with Ms. Barron's, what did you do to confirm whether or not the license plate matched to what you were told by dispatch?
I went out with my partner, Officer Flann, who confirmed it was the right vehicle.
And that happened by radio?
Correct.
And so prior to talking to Ms. Barron's, Officer Flann told you by radio that the vehicle matched and the plate matched, right?
He informed us he located the vehicle in the Sally Tobacco parking lot.
Okay. Did he tell you that he was able to confirm that the license plate matched to what was dispatched over to you guys?
I don't recall if he specifically said the license plate matched what dispatch gave out.
But you didn't independently go back and check the license plate when you arrived. You just took his word for it.
Correct.
All right. So you approached the passenger side. Ms. Barron's rolled down the window. Would you agree, sir, that at this point she was not free to leave?
As she rolled down the window, she was still free to, well, no, she would not be free to leave because we're investigating a domestic. So my partner wanted to make sure she was not a victim or a suspect in a domestic.
Right. If she tried to exit the vehicle at that point, you would have stopped her and told her she has to stand by and wait for the investigation to be completed.
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about what you knew prior to engaging in conversation with Ms. Barron, you and Officer Athman. My understanding is that he's not going to be testifying today, but you were pretty much there for the whole incident. You were talking about, correct?
Correct.
All right. Ms. Barron, you didn't see any traffic violations, committed by her or Mr. Barron's or the vehicle they were driving, correct?
You broke up during most of that question. I couldn't understand it.
Sure. Prior to approaching the vehicle, you didn't observe any traffic violations being committed by the occupants or by the vehicle itself, correct?
No, I did not.
All right. And also prior to that time, Mr. Barron did not have any pride in your presence, right?
clarify, you said Ms. Burns did not commit a crime in my presence?
Yes, sir. Yes.
No, not in my presence.
And Ms. Behrens also did not commit any crimes in your presence at that point when you came to talk to her.
No, she did not.
You would agree, sir, that the Saturn was legally parked?
It was in a private parking lot, so yes.
You didn't have any basis to issue any sort of a parking citation regarding how the vehicle was parked, accurate?
Correct.
Okay. You didn't hear any noise violations?
Did not.
You didn't see any equipment violations, correct?
I did not.
At the point when you were able to see Ms. Behrens and you, Officer Athman, are approaching the vehicle, you don't see any sort of fighting inside the vehicle, correct?
No, she was the only occupant when we approached her.
Right. And prior to that, you also did not see at any point Mr. Behrens and Mrs. Behrens fighting.
Correct. Correct.
You didn't see any arguing or yelling either, correct?
Correct.
There was no damage to the vehicle that you could see?
I was not looking for vehicle damage.
And Ms. Behrens did not have any injuries based on your observations, correct?
I could not get a real good look at her from how she was sitting. Nothing stood out at me immediately, though.
Okay. Fair to say that Ms. Behrens wasn't bothering anyone outside the vehicle when you approached?
She was not.
All right. And Mr. Behrens also was not bothering anyone. In fact, you say you didn't see him, so he was already gone.
Yeah, I don't know if he was or not. I did not see him.
Okay. This happened approximately 2 p.m., so it was light out?
Correct.
And so would you agree, sir, that at the time that you approached Ms. Behrens, that you were not able to corroborate any facts at all about this rolling domestic that you were dispatching?
At the time we approached Ms. Behrens, we have not conducted any further investigation yet.
Right, but at that point, you could not see anything corroborating the allegations that there was a fight inside the car.
Correct, correct.
Let's talk about the conversation you had with her before she was asked to exit the vehicle. She rolled down the window and was willing to talk to you, correct?
Correct.
I believe, in watching the squad video, I believe she was seatbelted when you approached, and I think she took off her seatbelt. Do you recall that at all?
I believe she did, but I can't say for sure.
Right. And at that point, as you're talking to her, you know, as she's sitting in the squad, officer asking this questioning her, you're observing, you can get a pretty good look at her at that point, correct?
Correct.
And so now that you have a chance to see her, you still saw no injuries on her body, correct?
I did not.
No bleeding or bruising of any sort, true?
Correct.
She never told you that she was in pain?
She did not.
And she never asked for your assistance during that time, you know, while you're talking to her before she's asked back to the vehicle?
No, she did not.
And so again, now that we've kind of investigated somewhat, had a chance to talk to her, there are still no corroborating facts compared to the 911 dispatch call that came in about anyone fighting in the car, correct?
From my side of the investigation, no, there was not.
Is it true, sir, that at some point this possible domestic investigation turned into a narcotics investigation?
Yes, it did.
And if you were to estimate when that happened, I suspect that happened at some point when you and Officer Flatten decided to do the canine stuff, correct?
Objection. That mischaracterizes the officer's testimony earlier.
Overruled. You may answer.
That is incorrect. The narcotics investigation began when the window rolled down. I smelled the odor of marijuana coming from the vehicle. That expanded my scope of investigation. Narcotics.
Okay. I apologize. You did say that. You're right. So at that point, once Ms. Behrens rolled down the window, you smelled marijuana on the vehicle, right?
Correct.
And how long have you been a police officer, sir?
6 years now?
And so you smelled the odor of marijuana multiple times?
Yes, I have.
And what did you smell inside Ms. Barron's car? Was it burnt marijuana or unburnt marijuana?
I smelled a little bit of both. I smell marijuana in the vehicle. It's just a smell that I have similar to marijuana.
Okay. You didn't see any smoke coming out of the vehicle, correct?
No, I did not.
Ms. Barron did not smoke any marijuana in your presence while you were talking to her, right?
No, she did not.
Okay. And so I want to ask you, the facts that you used to justify expanding the scope of your investigation from the domestic call, the possible domestic narcotics investigation, would you agree, sir, that your smelling of marijuana from the vehicle was the only factor that you used to justify expanding the scope of the stuff from this possible role in domestic narcotics investigation?
I agree that was the initial clue I had to expand the stop to a narcotics investigation. Correct.
Would you agree, sir, that there were no other facts on which you relied to expand that investigation?
No, the other factor was there was a canine on the scene, so I felt comfortable there would be no time to wait for a canine to approach that was trained in narcotics, so that a sniff could be done immediately.
Right. And so prior to the sniff, the only factor that was used to justify the sniff was the fact that you had smelled marijuana coming from the vehicle.
That was, again, you'd have to talk to the canine handler. I spoke to him and told him what I have. He ultimately decided he was going to use his canine to sniff. So I guess I really can't say yes or no to that because he ultimately gave the answer for the sniff.
Sure. Well, let's focus on what you had then. So in terms of what you had, the smell of marijuana was all you had. True?
But the smell of marijuana, and then I was concerned about fidgeting. That was typical of somebody using methamphetamine, and the pinpointed pupils kind of threw me off a little bit because that was typical of opioid use.
Okay. And you had observed those things before deciding to conduct the canine sniff, right?
Correct.
And so the factors were the smell of marijuana, the pupils, and Ms. Barron's fidgeting.
Correct.
And that's it.
Yes. 3 indicators.
The issue of fidgeting, is that also possibly indicative of somebody being nervous?
Yes, it is.
And you had no way to tell at that point whether Ms. Barron was nervous or high or having some kind of mental illness or something else, correct?
Correct.
The statement that Ms. Barron gave you